Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the meeting of Melton Borough Council. Evacuation procedures. In the event of having to evacuate the council chambers, please leave by one of the 6 emergency exits around the sides of the chambers. Please assemble at the far side of the front car park nearest to the park entrance. Officers will be at hand to assist persons who require any assistance. Public recording. There's a legislation that allows public to film, record, or use social media at a council meeting. This must not disrupt the good order of the meeting, nor include any filming or recording of the public seating area. Can you please switch all your mobile phones to silent? Microphones. Councillors and officers are reminded to use the microphones when speaking for the benefit of all present. Electric voting. Tonight we'll be using the electric voting system. This means the votes will be carried out via the microphone handset. When voting is taking place, you'll be given 3 options: yes, abstain, and no. And there will be 3 buttons flashing beneath the option. When the voting is open, please select the corresponding button in order to register your vote. I will now pass over to Reverend Nina Johnson for prayers.
Thank you very much. Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we give you thanks for those who are willing to serve in positions of local government. We pray for the members of staff here at Melton Borough Council, and we pray now for this meeting. We ask for wisdom and understanding as the councillors make difficult decisions in balancing priorities and needs within the community. And we pray for the people of Melton and the surrounding villages, for those who volunteer in various clubs and groups and bring a diverse richness to the town and villages. We pray that a strong spirit of community may prevail, not just in this room, but across the borough, enabling each person from youngest to eldest to know their place as a valued member of the community. And for that strong community spirit to be in places, especially where there are voices that seek to divide or diminish others. So bless, Lord, the people of Melton. Bless this meeting this evening. And bless the members here, that the decisions made will enable the town and villages to flourish. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Johnson. Item number 1, apologies for absences. Apologies of absence have been received by Councillor Ian Atherton and Councillor Chubb. Can any member wishing to give apologies for another member indicate so by raising their hand? In that case, we got 26 members present. Item number 2, to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 11th of December 25. I propose the minutes to be moved. Do I have a proposer? Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, happy to second.
Thank you. Do any member of the committee have any comments to make in relation to the accuracy of the minutes? I can confirm that no one wishes to proceed to the vote. Those in favour, press for, or against, or abstain. Thank you.
Why won't it go? No, it's not doing it.
Okay. So 24 for and 4 abstentions. Thank you.
Sorry, I was reading something.
Item number 3, Declaration of interest. If any member would like to indicate that they have an interest to declare, would they please do so by raising their hand? Councillor Higgins. Councillor Carter. James.
To invite them to give their interest.
Councillor Higgins, would you please declare your interest?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yes, I would like to declare an interest in item 8, which is the motions on notice. The first motion, which is Melton Borough Hospitality and Business Sector. I have a interest, declarable pecuniary interest, and from advice, I will leave the room. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a further interest on item 11 because I'm a council tenant. I'll be leaving the room. Thank you.
Councillor Mason.
I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest in item 8.
Councillor Sharp.
Yes, same one, number 8.
Gordon.
Yeah, I've got an interest on gender item 11. That's page 171. It's to do with the council rent, and I'm a council flat tenant. And also on page 74, 5.2 sector risk profile. My sister owns a house that she rents out. So when that comes up, I'll leave.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a pecuniary interest in item number 8 on the hospitality side of things.
Councillor Jolson.
I got a couple of interests actually, Madam Mayor, so thank you for asking. The first one is it's normally a roll-on item, so I've got to ask Democracy to please note for the future that I am a member of the County Council, so anything that relates to LCC, I have that personal interest. So if that could be noted for a roll-on item, please next time, Adam, because it's not here on this order sheet. And the other one is item 8. I'm a shareholder in the Black Horse Community Pub and also the Bell at Frisbee Community Pub. So I have a pecuniary interest, so I will retire from the room as well. Thank you.
Anybody else? As Councillor Olsen already said, it's on record for matters relating to the Leicester County Council that he has a pecuniary interest. Thank you. Right, we're moving on to the Mayor's announcement. It's been slightly busy since the last meeting, as you can see, but some of them really brilliant one was going up to Oasis School with Councillor Alnett and Councillor Brown has to check over, which was really, really fantastic. And it was quite inspiring to see how much work they do there and how important it is to support the preschool. One of the other ones was the Birch School opening the new autistic room, which was brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. I also went to the Air Cadets dinner, which was quite an eye-opener, walking in and everybody stood and saluted me walking in. Was quite surreal doing that. And which is not on here yet. It's Birchwood visited this afternoon when we had a proper council session here today. And it was so fantastic. One of the young lads, as he was leaving, shook my hand and said, talking to the mayor was like talking to Jesus. Bless him. Okay, it was really, really fantastic to do this. Okay, before I pass on, I have to say, I want to take the opportunity to recognise the work of our Health and Active Community team, which is Jake, Ali and Eve right at the back, if you would, so we can see you. So I went to the Everybody Active Award and it was a fantastic evening. It was a brilliant event and they will show us a video in a minute. There were creative and determination alongside a whole range of partner organisations, community groups, volunteers is making a real difference in the health and well-being in our community. I was really pleased to attend Let's Get Melton Moving Awards and was touched by the incredible stories I heard of the people I met. I'm delighted to have some of the team here this evening to be able to thank them on behalf of the council. Beyond the awards themselves, the evening highlighted how physical activity is about more than just sport. It's about integrate to health and well-being, from boosting mental health, resilience, and building social connection. The benefit is felt across the community and helps people of all ages to live healthier and happier life. Before we thank the team, I want to take a few minutes of your time to share, so we share the video with you. The video shown the awards event and it sums up perfectly the difference in our team makes in our community every day.
So I'm Charlotte and I'm part of the Move Better, Feel Better programme. Going from not necessarily those words, but being inactive to being mildly active is quite powerful because it's always that first step that just feels really difficult to do. When I went, Rob was great. He put me at ease and he really listened to my needs, my worries at the time, and tailored a session around what I needed at the time.
Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Atkinson. I've been a GP for 15 years working here at Latham House Medical Practice, and I'm here today to tell you a little bit more about why moving medicine is such an important part of healthcare. Physical activity is key to maintaining health for everybody. All adults should be exercising every day, but even exercising just once or twice a week can really help reduce your risk of heart disease and stroke. In fact, if physical activity was a drug, we'd refer to it as the miracle cure. Exercise can really help to prevent and manage many long-term conditions. And this is why we've collaborated making this short video to show you some exercises that you can try out at home.
Thank you. I'm sure members will agree this shows what a team can do. More than any report could. I've given my permission in advance for 2 of our cabinet members to say a few words, and I'd like to invite Councillor Carter to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As portfolio holder for customer and communities and helping people, I want to thank the team and everyone involved for making this such a good event and showcase what happens across our borough, keeping our community healthy and active. I'm very proud of the old health and active communities team and other council teams who support their work and who made the Let's Get Moving award event happen. A big thank you to Jake and the team and Catherine on behalf of us all. Also, to finish off, I'd like to thank Aisha. She does a great work and works hard. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. I'd now like to invite Councillor Sharon Butcher to say a few words.
Thank you. The awards event was fantastic. As portfolio holder with oversight of the leisure contract, it was great to see the wider reach of the partnership in helping people to stay healthy and active and the difference this makes to people's lives. I also want to thank the many people that submitted nominations, attended and sponsored the event, and those that shared their personal stories and experiences. It was really the best of what we can do together.
Thank you, Councillor Butcher. I'd like now to say thank you both members. Before we finish, I'd like to ask our fantastic team members that have made this event happen to join us this evening to stand, and I ask you all to join me in giving them a round of applause. I now invite the leader, Councillor Arnott, to provide his announcement.
I feel as though I should be jogging around the room first. What do you think? Let's go.
I'm not going to stop you.
Right. Madam Mayor, may I first thank also the sponsors who made our Let's Get Melton Moving event possible. They were visibly moved by the testimonies and quiet dignity of ordinary folk doing extraordinary things. I was especially pleased to see our new friends from Sangabang. Already they are a genuine part of our community. This is also reflected in their recruitment policy. It has a strong commitment to equality and diversity and aims to target underrepresented groups such as women, BAME and SEN. Please note the SEN. Councillor Glancy and I were very impressed at the outset of our meetings with Sangabang that their recruitment strategy is interested in attitude, behaviour and willingness to learn rather than specific manufacturing experience. So training will be provided, including opportunities to travel to their production units in Poland and Spain. At full capacity, the new plant in Asforby will have 250 roles recruited in phases commencing probably later this year or early next, and will have a mix of white and blue collar, skilled and unskilled. The majority of the initial 100 roles will be recruited in mid 2027. These will include plant operatives, support functions such as mechanical and electrical maintenance. For the Council, in addition to providing public services and championing the aspirations of our community, we are concerned to promote jobs, homes and a diverse economy. As it might have been said in the Bible, man does not live by pie and cheese alone. In the same vein, I wish to thank all those who organised and attended another excellent business event hosted here in Parkside on Tuesday evening. There was a real buzz of interest and engagement. The presentation by BID and others, and by Councillor Helen Cliff on the Purple Pound were all well received. My thanks to Councillor Sharon Butcher for her steadfast promotion of business and inward investment, and of course to our dedicated regeneration team. Madam Mayor, members will be aware of the tragic incident at the level crossing in Bottisford. It is not appropriate in this forum to comment on the details, except to note on behalf of the whole council our deepest sympathy for all affected. But I do wish to thank Councillors Jim Mason and Don Pritchett for pitching in immediately to support their community. These circumstances take an emotional toll on everybody. Thanks also to Councillor Sarah Cox for using her considerable experience to support them, and of course our own staff working in the background, and whom I was able to contact late into the night, showing once again that theirs is not a 9-to-5 job at a desk in Parkside. Madam Mayor, members will also be aware of the recent incident at the Regal Cinema in Melton, when a number of people, including co-owner Bryony Mundin, responded to a gentleman who had gone into cardiac arrest. Beth Pascoe, a landlady of the nearby pub known locally as the Jenny B, reflected that a life had been saved because a defibrillator funded by her regulars was used, and I'm sure that all members will wish to record our gratitude to all concerned. A key lesson from this incident is the fact that the defibrillator was easily available on the outside of a public building. Now, some of our local defibrillators are not so available because they're on the inside. This incident underlines the importance of community spirit and working together in a practical way. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank our Business Improvement District, the Heritage Society and Councillor Butcher for enabling the deployment of additional defibrillators, partly using a grant from this council made possible by our decision to forego some of our personal allowances. Madam Mayor, if I may stick with our health and welfare theme, scrutiny considered budget proposals. I regret that Councillor Chubb's not here because I know he specialises in some of these things. This budget contains a small growth bid to enable the continuation for an extra year of health checks for farmers at the stockyard. I feel certain that every councillor will therefore wish to support our budget proposals this evening. Madam Mayor, it is extremely disappointing that the Integrated Care Board has stabbed this community in the back. The cynical closure of St Mary's Birthing Unit and their incomprehensible opinion that we do not even need more GPs at the current time is breathtaking. It is doubly insulting when we consider how much this council is doing to help healthy living. We've seen the video about Let's Get Melton Moving. Farmers' health checks. We secured Waterfield as a facility with its equipment for those with physical and other challenges. Defibrillators, changing places and even parking spaces. This council is doing its bit and the ICB needs to do its share, but I'm not giving up on this yet. Madam Mayor, I wish to refer to devolution and local government reorganisation. Today, the government has announced, amongst other things to do with planning, that it's tending to favour Leicestershire, Leicester and Rutland as the essential footprint for devolution, and therefore eventually the mayoral authority under which will be the 3 unitary councils. So far, so good. Now, for the next 18 months, much of our effort will be spent readying for the transition to a unitary council, whichever that is, but with one eye on the devolution decision that's coming. I do not wish to speculate on what might be and simply rehearse a few facts. The Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government has launched its public consultation on the 3 alternative proposals for unitaries across Leicestershire, Leicester and Rutland. The consultation is extended to a large number of institutions and any parish council may make its response. The consultation is not a referendum per se. MHLCLG will make a decision followed by a formal approval and laying of orders in Parliament. We are encouraging everybody, regardless of party affiliations or opinions about LGR, to register their views. To this end, the distribution of the council tax statement will include a reminder leaflet with information and a link. Along with our partner councils, we are seeking further liaison with our MPs. And in fact, I just heard this afternoon that we've got to link up tomorrow morning, rather early. Now, irrespective of the final outcome, we are gradually gearing up to frame the work needed for implementation with multilateral and bilateral discussions at different levels, and of course, due consideration for staff, their needs and their concerns. Business as usual and service delivery must also be maintained. A key part of this process is the harmonisation of existing policies, of which there are a great many. Much of this will be routine operational aspects without too much input from elected members, but some may require a strong political lead and agreement across constituent councils. And I'm grateful to Councillor Pat Cumbers for leading on some of this work on my behalf. Harmonisation of our councils will cover assets, reserves, debt, council tax, departmental organisation, local plans, social housing stock and much, much more. And we wish to ensure that every member of this council has the opportunity to keep abreast of what will inevitably be a fast-moving and complex process, and to contribute ideas or express concerns. So, within the existing constitutional arrangements, as to be advised by the monitoring officer, we are proposing to set up a fairly flexible working group as a forum and focus for member engagement on this topic. It will be inclusive of all groups and non-aligned members. It will commence probably after the government's decision is published, and therefore we do have time to consult on the detailed arrangements for this consultation and engagement of members. Now, Councillor Childs has asked a question of me tonight, specifically about parish councils, and I trust that with what I've just now said, my answer is satisfactory. And of course, we shall be considering also the pros and cons of establishing a parish parity for the half of our population who reside in the town of Melton Mowbray and who are currently unrepresented at parish level. But that's for the future. Madam Mayor, I have not wished everyone a Happy New Year, so Happy New Year. But I would like to record our thanks to the BID and the town estate and our staff for the festive switch on event and the many voluntary groups who brightened the winter gloom right across our borough. Now, Christmas is a time of miracles and pantomimes, so I now turn to the Leicestershire County Council. I'm very pleased to confirm that we are now having routine meetings to try to resolve current and shared problems, and jointly we are forward-looking. We met this week at County Hall, and next month we will meet here at Parkside. This borough has not benefited from the county largesse with the issue of flooding because we are deemed to have a lower priority. But I have to say that having met the cabinet member at County Hall, he is keen to help and to improve on this position. Madam Mayor, I'm pleased to confirm that we are making good progress towards spades in the ground at the stockyard, as confirmed in my letter to our MP. And I wish to emphasise a few key points. The short delay to is due to a few external factors, but it has enabled us to increase the scope and quality of the programme in support of both business and the community. We are managing the important need to support existing businesses through the construction phase. All issues and opportunities are being dealt with on a business first basis, led by our highly professional and experienced team, who are not just managing the development, but also supporting the existing new businesses with their growth ambitions. All contracts are being awarded in accordance with the highest procurement standards and principles of best value. There is no political interference, certainly not from me, and I will have no truck with backdoor lobbying or political posturing from any quarter. Madam Mayor, almost on my last item. Members will recall that our former Mayor, Alan Hewson, and I championed the opportunity for food waste has for adding humus back into our land, which helps water retention and therefore flood prevention. On the other hand, my friend Councillor Richard Sharp has pointed out the dilemma and science of temperature control in the degrading process. Too hot and it reduces the organic value. Too cold and there's potential for pathogens to remain in the soil and water table and get into the food chain. We are familiar with problems of chicken feces in our rivers and killing fish. So at the macro level, there is a lot to consider. This evening, the budget paper set out the challenge of implementing food waste collections. I'm sure members will wish to comment on this as part of the debate, but for now, I wish to correct the record on some inaccuracies that I have seen and reported in the media just recently. The Council has consistently remained committed to implementing food waste collections and remains so, but has repeatedly made clear that this would be dependent upon successive governments following through on repeated assurances that central government would cover the costs arising from the new statutory duties introduced through the Simpler Recycling programme. We cannot allow our financial sustainability to be undermined because new burdens are not funded as promised. We and councils across the country have expressed repeated concerns about the delays of funding announcements for food waste and the lack of transparency in the recent finance settlement. Up until the settlement was announced, the council has made appropriate preparations and continued to develop implementation plans in good faith and was relying upon the repeated assurances that any new revenue burdens will be fully funded. We had already seen a shortfall in capital funding allocations for vehicles and caddies receiving only £581,000 and having to top it up by a further £239,000 from our own capital receipts to finance what was required. Despite repeated challenges to DEFRA on this, no further capital funds were forthcoming. With the budget confirmed last year, orders were placed accordingly for the vehicles and food caddies, but significant demand pressures in the supply chain across the country means that vehicles are not due to be delivered until later this year, similar to many other councils. No payments have yet been made and none will be released until the orders have been fulfilled. Alongside placing these orders, we have undertaken modelling and made appropriate preparations to implement the service with our waste collection partner. We have, however, not been able to initiate formal negotiations on a contractual basis or procurement arrangements to vary the contract until the new burdens funding had been confirmed by government. Given that food waste collections will represent an additional cost of nearly 10% of our budget, to enter a new contract without confirmation of funding would have been extremely ill-advised, and had we done so, given the outcome of the financial settlement, we would now be in dire situation. It would simply not have passed muster so far as audit and due diligence is concerned. And that's why we took the decisions we did. Setting aside the shortfall in funding, the delays in funding announcement and the lead times arising would have meant the earliest we could have commenced food waste collections would have been January 2027. The finance settlement has, though, fundamentally changed things. I will not rehearse in detail what others will cover in the budget debate later, but suffice to say, at a time when we have an additional 10% cost burden being placed upon us, our funding has gone down by 5%. To implement food waste in line with the original timetable would exhaust our reserves by 28-29. The magnitude of savings required to mitigate this would decimate council services and, of course, jeopardise all the sorts of things that we've seen on the video tonight, apart from statutory undertakings. And it would significantly weaken the organisation's ability to contribute towards a smooth LGR transition. It would also lead to the transfer of significant risk to any new unitary council, and I'm clear this would be an unacceptable and an act of gross irresponsibility, and I'm not going down that road. Accordingly, we have had to reset the timetable and are now working towards implementation from 2028. To support this, we will work to defer delivery of our vehicles and caddies until nearer this time. This approach will enable the council to maintain its financial stability, could contribute positively towards LGR transition, whilst also enabling us to secure best value for money for the food waste service, and in the context of potential greater economies of scale afforded through LGR. We have repeatedly raised our concerns regarding the finance settlement and delays in funding announcements with MHCLG and DEFRA, and have also advised DEFRA of our intentions to delay implementation of waste food, something we are aware, and we are aware of a number of other councils who have already done this. We hope that they support what we know that they support what we think remains a pragmatic and prudent approach. Indeed, my letter to the department was published and it received support and favourable comment across the sector. Madam Mayor, I'm on my last page. I wish to thank Councillors Brown and Child for their words in the second motion tonight, which recognises in their words my commitment to clear accountability and transparent decision making. I think everyone knows that I do not shy away from searching questions and robust democratic debate. I am therefore, in the context of waste disposal, shocked and disappointed that their colleague Chris Gray, a parish councillor, one-time Melton Mowbray Town Estate Fifi and candidate at the Ashby by-election, should misrepresent this council's policy and performance on food waste collection, and in quite disgraceful, vulgar terms. I'm certain that Councillor Brown would agree with me this is not appropriate, and he will have access to the particular Facebook page in due course. And I'm seriously saying I expect a written apology from Mr Gray forthwith. And if not, I expect the Conservative group, an honourable group on this council, to demand that their association expel him, or they will have to face the odium of appearing to be agreeing with his words by their inaction. Thank you, Madam.
What rule do you wish to raise it against?
Excuse me, there's obviously been a clear allegation that's been made. I haven't seen it, I don't know what it is, but I'd like to reassure Councillor Allen that I will take this back to the party, get it investigated and get it looked up, because if that has happened, that's unacceptable. I don't look at Facebook these days as much as I did in the past, so I just want to do that there. But that is, if that has happened, whatever has happened, I will take that back to our association and ask them to look at it. I can't do anything about it. Okay, cheers.
Item number 6, no question from the public have been received. We move straight on to item number 7. 8 questions from members have been received. The questions have written responses have been tabled, and I will ask the questioner if they would like to ask a supplementary question. In accordance with procedure rules, may I remind questioners that a supplementary question must raise directly out of the original reply. The first question is from Councillor Butcher for the portfolio holder of Corporation Leadership, Project and Housing, and its relation to how the council housing policy assists people suffering from domestic violence. Councillor Butcher, in relation to the response to your first question, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Domestic violence affects individuals in different ways, and there is no single response that meets every survivor's need. While some victims may welcome relocation and the opportunity for a fresh start, others need stability, familiarity, and the support of their existing community. Every survivor's circumstances, recovery and process and needs are different, and the policy should reflect this. I'm writing on behalf of a resident I supported with her full permission to give her voice and experience. She was a victim of domestic violence and could not remain in her property due to traumatic memories associated with abuse, which caused ongoing nightmares and distress.
Councillor Butcher, could you just ask the question, please?
Yeah, but the question relates to why she felt this way. Okay. Could you please consider strengthening the policies language around the victim choice, flexibility and trauma-informed decision-making? Survivors deserve to be heard, believed and supported, not displaced.
Madam Mayor, well, it's an impassioned plea, and I would be delighted to consider the full text of Councillor Butcher's statement, which I understand she wasn't able to read out completely, and I will give a full written response, and I'm delighted to meet with her to discuss it in detail. Thank you.
Thank you. The second question is from Councillor Butcher to follow holder of Corporation Finance, Prosperity and Resources in relation to the improvement and has been made to council finances and assets since 2023. Councillor Butcher, in relation to the response to your question, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cox, for your broad reply. I wonder if you could expand on some of the areas of assets in relationship to allotments, leases, parks, mothballed buildings, particularly King Street, where there is a lot of understandable public interest.
Thank you, Councillor Butcher. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think when we stood for election, we all seen a number of empty buildings around the town at a time when homelessness was increasing, and also in an increasingly financially challenging time. That is why, when we formed as an administration, we established the Asset Management Working Group to set some clear priorities for the council around what we felt was needed in relation to assets. It was clear at that time that there was a lack of understanding within the council of what MBC owned, who was leasing which buildings and what they were paying. The Asset Management Group, and thank you to all those who attended and contributed, shaped the future direction of the work of the asset management team, and we set them a task of forming a list of assets, cost benefit analysis of all the current assets we owned, and sorting out the leases and charges. In particular, a number of issues came forward that the group were significantly concerned about. The Fairmead Centre, which we were paying over £9,000 a year just to heat, which was empty, is now being developed into a home. The Douglas Jane Centre, which was empty and we were paying over £4,000 for heating, is now being developed into a home. The Cove, which cost benefit analysis is indicating is potentially best to sell, was actually costing this council over £35,000 a year to heat whilst it was empty. And when we asked what the building was being used for, it was being used to store an ex-Conservative councillor's sports equipment who had subsequently emigrated to Australia. Phoenix House. At Phoenix House, we had this year had to write off £63,000 worth of utility costs that had not been collected since 2016. The garages, we now have a policy for the disposal or refurbishment of the garages, which many of us had seen in a dilapidated condition. Allotments, I'm pleased to announce that within the budget tonight there is a small allocation for allotments, which we understand is an important community resource. And finally, King Street. The King Street building, was allocated a grant of £540,000, and it is of deep concern to this administration that when we took back the lease of that premises, it was found to have significant structural defects. And the questions I have been raising with the council is, where did £540,000 go under the last administration that would leave that building in such a state? Thank you to the new director for the significant progress and the cross-departmental work that's now taking place within the council. The environmental team and asset team working together to get a true picture of all our assets and their maintenance. Thank you to the asset team for reviewing all the leases, bar the last few. I know that we've made significant progress in this area, and that all of those recommendations and work has come back to the cabinet. So thank you. Hope that answers you. Question.
Thank you. The third question is by Councillor Ronan Brown to the Chair of Planning Committee in relation to the non-collected Section 106 monies from the development at the Frisbee on the Week. Councillor Ronan Brown, in relation to the response to your first question, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Madam Mayor, no, I won't do on this occasion. So thank you, Councillor Twist, for your response. Things have moved on a little bit, and Lydia Russelling's, we're making progress, hopefully. I think maybe the question has prompted the action, which again, Lydia. Okay.
Thank you. The fourth question is from Councillor Child to the portfolio holder of customer service communities and helping people, and in relation to the mental health service within the borough. Councillor Child, in relation to the response to your first question, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, Madam Mayor, please. Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Carter, thank you for your response. What areas of mental health, what areas of the mental health services have you raised, please? Quite short.
Councillor Charles, at the minute, I haven't got to the answers. I will come back to you by email if that's okay. Thank you.
The fifth question is also by Councillor Child to the leader of the council in relation to the support parish council in the process of the local government reorganisation. Councillor Child, in relation to the response to your second question, would you like to ask a supplementary question? Thank you. The sixth question is from Councillor Joe Olsen to the portfolio holder of customer service communities in helping people in relation to the council interaction with the borough parish councils. Councillor Joe Olsen, would you, in relation to your question, ask a supplementary question?
Would you come back to me, Madam Mayor? Just give me 2 minutes to locate it, if that's possible. I've got a question written out and I just can't find it. Is that okay? Yeah, thank you very much.
So the seventh question is by Councillor Webster to the Chair of Planning Committee in relation to the planning service. Councillor Webster, in relation to the response to your question, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask a supplementary question. Yes, thank you for the response, Councillor Thwaites. Very detailed. Thank you very much. Sorry I wasn't able to attend the briefing, but I've been put up with the notes now. So my supplementary question is, can the chair please let the council know when he would expect the planning service to be in a position of determining minor applications within 8 weeks and large applications within 13 weeks after an application is validated as per policy? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Webster, for your additional question, and thank you for the comments from Councillor Brown earlier. But I don't have those figures at hand at the moment, but I'll endeavour to take those and reply to you in writing if that's fine. Thanks very much.
Sweet.
The eighth question is from Councillor Ronan Brown to the portfolio holder of Economic Growth, Town Centre, Leisure, and it's related to the lobbying that has taken place in the support of local businesses. Councillor Ronan Brown, in relation to the response to your second question, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, can the portfolio holder inform the council, other than Edward Arthur MP, which other Labour ministers, such as Business Secretary, MCHLG, that they have lobbied, written to or communicated with in relation to requesting fiscal tax changes to enable small and medium-sized businesses to be more sustainable and grow?
Yes, I have.
Councillor Jolson, have you found your second question?
I have. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for your patience. I'm having network problems, I'm afraid. Yeah, Councillor Carter, many thanks for your answer. But obviously you are declining to provide us with the most basic factual record of our engagement. How can this council, or the public, distinguish between liaison work that has actually taken place and liaison work that is simply being asserted? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson, for your question. I'm sorry I can't relate. I'll come back to you by email if that's okay. Thank you.
No right. So there's no right to reply.
There's no right to reply.
Right, item number 8. There are 2 motions to notice to hear this evening. The first motion is about Melton Borough hospitality and business sector. I just wait till everybody's out. I invite Councillor Webster to propose and outline the notion. The move on one notice motion may speak of up to 10 minutes.
Madam Mayor, we're asking the council to support the written motion as set in your papers tonight, as we feel that jointly as a council, we need to show solidarity in supporting our hospitality, leisure and small business sector. The motion is set out to lobby government to help with all sectors set out across the whole borough, including our town and villages. As everyone will be aware, all small businesses is finding it hard to present their soaring costs, rents and rates, increasing along with consumers in general having changed their habits regards to shopping. Our pubs and leisure sector is a key across our borough and often enabling young people to start their employment journey and also allowing flexible working for others. This motion seeks to ask the council support to write to government asking for consideration of a proper review excuse me, of business rates for all those sectors and consider VAT being set at a more sensible 10% for the hospitality and leisure sector. This would help in allowing businesses to grow, new business to have a fighting chance and allow our town and rural communities to become more vibrant. There are over 1,000 pubs closing a year in the UK, an increase in leisure businesses closing and over 2,500 further small businesses expected to close their doors. Melton as an economy that depends on these businesses we're talking about here tonight, been able to exist and strive. Can I therefore ask that you support this motion tonight? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I invite Councillor Child to second.
Yeah, I'm happy to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak. Please note, any speeches must not exceed 5 minutes. I will now invite the leader to start.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've submitted an amendment to the motion, and it's been circulated, not because we are violently opposed to the general theme, but because of the wording is not quite to our liking. And I'm pleased to hear from Councillor Webster the word rent, because rent is a significant factor. And as I mentioned in my answer to I think who was it? It was Kelly Davis in December 2024, which was a question on a very similar theme. I emphasised that rent was a very significant factor, not just in its own way, but because historically it's formed the basis of business rates. And I know this to my own family cost, because my father's business went out of business in the 1950s because rents escalated enormously, and that is a key factor. And we're also concerned that, of course, any rebate on business rates reflects on the income to councils. So if we're talking about fully funding it, it has to be from somewhere. And I think the amendment encapsulates our concern to see that it can be done. But there does need to be a review of the whole package. So I move the amendment as circulated. And thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Carnsley.
I'll second the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Webster, are you happy to accept the amendment?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we accept.
Thank you. Now this becomes a substantial motion, and I open it to debate. Would anybody wish to debate? Please raise their hands. Councillor Almond.
Madam Mayor, in supporting the now substantive motion, I want to emphasise that we must not fall into the trap of thinking that employees are the source of the problem. Every employee must have a living wage, and that means the ability to pay a mortgage, go on holiday and have a home. And while staff costs are a significant input cost, we must not fall into that trap of thinking it's they're causing the problem, and we must be wary about unregistered staff who come from all over the place and grind the wage level down. High wages, reasonable taxes, and a driving economy. That's what we need. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Butcher.
Having been a landlady for 18 years, the biggest cost with wages and staff wages do not count as an offset against your sales. That was one of our biggest struggles, more so than business rates. I wrote to the MP on the 10th of January requesting his support to do with business rates and asking him to support representation in Parliament on issues that are a significant impact to our local economy. This is not just for pubs and hospitality. This is also retailers on the street, which are suffering significantly as well. I mentioned the high street rent increases, and unlike residential tenants, there is no commercial rent hike protection. As Pip's already touched on about the rent, I mentioned business rates being a barrier for the high streets. Unfortunately, he didn't reply till nearly a month later. The MP replied on the unintentional consequences of what is proposed by me to be an impact on the funding for the council. And then we have this motion. So I welcome this motion that Councillor Brown is thinking on the same wavelengths as I did when I contacted the MP. I'd also like to mention where the where they asked the council officers to work with Melton Bid. We have the strongest relationship with Melton Bid than we've ever had over this last 2 or 3 years. So, you know, that's a significant improvement from our officers that also run a business forum, town centre improvement, grant support funding with individual businesses. We have Discover Melton, investor roundtable events. So we are actually doing a lot.
Yeah.
Councillor Butcher. Anybody else wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be brief because my voice doesn't hold out for more than 30 seconds at a time at the moment. I have to say I was in two minds before tonight how to react to this motion and equally the amended motion. I just wanted to make the point we shouldn't fall into the trap. Whilst all of the various points in here have merit of thinking that's the whole solution, the problem with our high streets, with our small businesses, with our hospitality sector goes much deeper. It's about changes, societal changes that have been taking place over a long period of time. So whilst these measures have merit in being looked at, we must not take our foot off the pedal of looking at how we support the development of our towns and villages to support the growth and sustainability of businesses. It's more about how much is paid in wages, although I do agree with the veiled comments of the leader. I fully support the living wage, and I don't think driving down wages is a solution to the problem. So I will support the motion. I would also suggest, I'm sure most members, because this was on the agenda, have read the latest report of the Business and Trade Select Committee, which was published on the 11th of February. It's only 58 pages long. It's an update report. And if you care to look at it, you'll find it addresses some of the issues that are in here and wider issues about stimulating the economy. So, yes, I will commend the motion, but let's not forget we need to look at other issues than just what's in it.
Thank you. Does anybody else wishing to speak? I can count up. Oh, Simon Olsen.
Thank you. In terms of blaming employees, I don't think there's a huge amount of blame being put on employees. I think the biggest issue is the policies set out by the current Labour government. They're overseeing an economy that's flatlining, going down, and as a result, the hospitality sector of Melton Mowbray is suffering. And all of this at the hands of Councillor Arnott's party.
Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, what I'm thinking of is the small businesses to do with the national insurance and the living wage. And I'm not against the living wage, but I think we ought to look at, with the government, possibilities of probably not it going up so fast as it is doing, because it's not fair on the small businesses, because they have to let people go because they can't afford to keep them. And as time's gone on, obviously businesses do close. So this is something we've really got to look at, because it's unfair that small businesses that really bring a lot to our towns and villages, and and the artisans and everything, and it's brilliant. And to see them close because they can't afford to keep on paying the higher cost of living wage and also for the national insurance. So really, we do have to think about this and hopefully get the government on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wishing to speak? Case Councillor Tim Webster, as was your motion, you have the last word before we go to the vote.
The second amendment.
Thank you. In this case, we will go to the vote. Please use the electronic voting system in front of you. Choose either for, against, or abstain.
New one.
Yeah. That's unanimous 21. Can we let the others back in, please? Thank you. The second notion is about strengthening transparency and accountability within the leader and the cabinet model. I invite Councillor Ronan Brown to proceed and outline the notion. The mover has the opportunity to speak to up to 10 minutes. Councillor Ronan Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. We're going to withdraw the motion. Okay, thank you.
So that item. We move to item 9, Cabinet recommendation to Council Capital Programme 25-20 and 2030 and the Capital Strategy 26-27. In accordance with regulation, the vote on this item will be taken as a record vote. The record of the vote will be taken from the electronic voting system. The Constitution sets out special debate rules for the budget. Since no alternative budget has been provided, only the Cabinet may make revised recommendation or change amendments from the floor or are not permissible. Officers can provide further advice on this point as required. I invite the portfolio holder of Corporation Finance, Property Resources, Councillor Cox, to present the Cabinet's recommendation to the Council on Capital Programme 25 to 2030 and the Capital Strategy 26-27.
Still coming up with voting, is that right?
Voting hasn't gone off.
As long as you can hear me, I'll just carry on. That's fine. Okay, before I get into the budget, I wish to address some comments that have been made by the opposition in relation to this council's management of finance, in particular by a member of, I believe, the executive group, who has suggested that those in charge of finance at this council are herpes in suits. My request to the opposition would be, please get your house in order and address comments like that, because it's totally unprofessional.
Councillor Cox, could I ask you just to...
Yes, I'll move on now. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Initial notification was received by the 151 officer in December that we would be one of 65 affected authorities across the country who would be most affected by the new financial arrangements that the government were proposing. The final budget was received, final settlement figures were received on Monday, the 9th of February. And therefore some figures will have changed. Members will be aware that since the papers have been issued, the finance settlement has been finalised on the 9th. And the impact is an increase in the homelessness grant of £34,691 for 26-27, some of which is in recognition of the impact of the Renters Reform Bill. The main impact, however, relates to how pooling gains are taken into account, and this has resulted in a further shift of funding away from districts to the upper tier authorities. The impact of this is offset in 26-27 by the introduction of adjustment grants to put the level of grant back to that in the provisional settlement. However, this grant is for 1 year only, meaning the full effect of the reduction is felt in 27-28 and 28-29. Also, since the papers were issued, we've received the final land drainage levies. The bottom line impact of these changes is a reduced draw on the Corporate Priorities Reserve in 26-27 of £35,770. The impact on later years is a reduction in government funding of over 300,000, which will increase the forecast deficits in these years and the likely draw on reserves. These adjustments will be made to the budget by the Director of Corporate Services, and I'm sure the opposition will be able to access those amendments. As well as providing the spend against the general capital budget for 25-26, the report before you sets out the proposed capital programme for 26-27 and the council capital strategy. The programme for the next year and capital strategy are, of course, recommendations that I put before you tonight. With the council's limited capital resources and depleted capital receipt, a very modest programme is proposed for 26-27. The council is reliant on funding for IT and equipment and on renewal and repairs reserve, which is built up from revenue contributions based on the life of the assets. The limited proposals we are putting forward have been calculated on a health and safety basis. This has been the direction from us as a cabinet and has guided the decision making of the wider asset management plan. The main proposal is the inclusion of an additional 260,000 for surface water drainage works at Lake Terrace. Lake Terrace is a high priority, and sadly, due to the reduced finances, hard decisions have had to be made over where the limited resources we have are to be spent. The priority of the asset development plan is now to progress at haste the cost benefit analysis work that I've outlined earlier in answering Councillor Butcher, done around a number of assets the council own to support future capital receipts and projects. At this time, due to some recent commentary, I feel it's important to mention the King Street building. Last year, Cabinet made a difficult decision to sell this premises in the hope a business would be able to use the building whilst respecting the importance of its history. We recognise that the most appropriate custodians of this building were not MBC with its limited resources. The preparation for sale progressed and Shonky Brother auctioneers were lined up for sale. There have, however, been two major issues. Inspection of the building once the leaseholder relinquished the site identified that there had been structural issues that meant it could not progress to sale. To obtain the funding to conduct appropriate and sympathetic repairs to the building, additional grant funding would now need to be sought. I have deep concerns that this building was awarded a substantial grant of over £540,000 under the last administration, and yet the structural integrity of this building has not been maintained. I'm seeking answers as to what the money was spent on. However, I recognise that many of the officers in post at MBC were not present when the grant was spent. In relation to the loss of a popular bar, which there has been a lot of commentary on and concern in relation to the budget, regardless of the decision to sell, the current condition of the building is not a lettable condition until scope of required work has been ascertained. Officers understand the importance of the history of this site, both to us as the Cabinet and to the community, and we are working to secure its future. On a last positive note, car parking machines will be replaced this year from secured reserves. I mention this as some councillors at scrutiny didn't pick it up within the body of the report. There is a commitment to replace the dilapidated machines we were left with. It is also pleasing to be able to propose the expenditure of £15,000 on Doctors' Lane allotments or for fencing. Whilst a modest sum, it's an area that the community in our district hold.
Thank you. Do I have a proposer? Do I have a seconder?
Second and reserve my right to speak.
Could I just ask a question, please? I've got an interest on 5.2, the sector risk profile. So that would be all come in, won't it, on the vote? So shall I leave the room? I'll leave the room. Yeah,
Yes,
thank
please.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lo.
I will now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak. Councillor Child.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Clearly, Councillor Cox has got a good handle on the capital report. This has been through scrutiny. It has been to the Cabinet. And I'm sitting here looking pages 30 and 31. Have you got those on your screen? Okay. At 5.1.1, you're forecasting an underspend of 115,000. At the top of the page, there's a table, and I can see where the 115,000 comes in on place. But the table doesn't balance. If you look at Great Council, the year end is less than the budget. So I make it, despite what the Cabinet and scrutiny have not said, 139,000. If you look at 5.2.1, it says there are several projects to be delivered, except the privilege access management is unlikely to be spent. So when I turn to the Appendix A, pages 37, 38, that clearly is slightly out of sync. Can you just explain the rationale behind this, please?
I don't think it's rationale, Councillor Childs. I think you found some mistakes in the way the paper's been prepared. So I think in relation to that, if you've just found us £39,000, that's fantastic. But actually what I will do is I will take it.
24,000.
Well, thank you very much. You just mentioned 39, but now if you're saying it's 20.
Councillor Cox, I'm sorry, can we continue with the debate first, and then if you answer right at the end or the question, would that be okay?
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm glad that Councillor Cox has mentioned and not being able to sell 6 King Street. It is of great interest to me, it always has been, because we have such a little heritage left in this town. I don't know whether other people have been to the back of that building. Right through the back, there's a Queen Anne staircase. There are so many things. Can I just ask whether this is appropriate at this time? I don't know. But if it was going to be sold, who it was going to be sold to? I know it can't be sold. Who it was going to be sold to, and how it could be kept as an asset for Melton. Thank you.
Can we continue the debate? Anybody else wishing to speak before passing back to Councillor Cox? No, Councillor Cox, would you like to respond, please?
Yeah, I think in part I've already responded to Councillor Child. So in relation to the table and the specific details you gave about 37, 38, I'm sure officers will have taken note on that, and we'll come back to you with some clarification on those issues. In relation to King Street, I know that Councillor Holmes has particular interest in the history of the town. That building is a real historic asset to this town, and we've recognised, as Cabinet, we recognise that. Our concern was how much money is needed to maintain the integrity of that building, and the shocking state in which we found it, and the structural concerns, have been noted by Cabinet. What we are now doing is looking at the heritage strategy of the town going forward and actually looking for alternative grant funding to supplement. And it's going to be a difficult ask because we've already had £540,000 for this building that I'd have thought you'd have been able to rebuild it from the ground up with that. But we do intend to try and seek additional grant funding to maintain that building.
Right. Can we now continue with the voting system, please? Use the electric voting system in front of you. For, against, abstain, please. Can I remind, I've asked members if they wanted to speak. Nobody put their hand up, so it went back. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up. So it went back to Councillor Cox for the last response. Can we continue with the voting system, please? That's 23 for and 2 abstentions. Thank you. Item number 10. According to the regulation, the vote on the items motion, which is the cabinet.
We just get Councillor Gordon.
Item number 10, Cabinet recommendation to the Council General Fund Revenue Budget 26-27, the medium-term financial strategy 27-28 to 29-30. In accordance with the regulation, the vote on the item motion will be taken on record vote. The record vote will be taken from the electronic voting system. The Constitution sets out specific debate rules for the budget. Since no alternative budget has been provided, only the Cabinet can make revised recommendation or changes, and amendments from the floor are not permissible. Officers can provide further assistance advice on this response as required. Before I invite the portfolio holder to say, can I make it clear that debate starts first and right at the end, the portfolio holder has the chance to respond. Please raise your hand properly so I can see who's raising a hand or not. I do apologise, I did not see. I will now invite the portfolio holder for the Recuperation Finance, Prosperity and Resources, Councillor Cox, to represent the Cabinet recommendation to the Council on General Fund Revenue Budget 26-27, the Medium-Term Financial Strategy 27-28 to 29-30.
Thank you. Following the announcement of the provisional finance settlement in late December, never has balancing the council's budget been more challenging. However, despite the best attempts by the opposition to present otherwise, our position is stable and we intend to take no knee-jerk decisions. The council is one of 67 councils that are hardest hit by the settlement, and this has meant we fall into a level of protection resulting in funding at 95% of the 25-26 levels. Our external grant funding also reduces each year in future in line with the level of council tax increase. This means no additional funding is forthcoming to offset inflation and increased service demand. More importantly, however, it means this council has received no funding to support the introduction of a statutory food waste service. The budget proposals before members does not allow for the additional cost of a food waste collection service. The council has and will continue to lobby government to allow a delay in implementation or additional funding for the food waste. Alongside this, officers are also modelling scenarios for implementation, as well as considering what savings would be necessary to provide the necessary additional finances. I'm grateful to the leader for already submitting his letter to government on this matter, which has led to other authorities identifying they are in a similar position. We understand the new formula might be working towards LGR. However, we as a Cabinet are committed to ensuring the financial stability of the Council for the duration of this administration, and therefore challenging decisions are being made. What the budget proposals do contain are essential and high priority growth proposals for both general and special expenses. Cabinet have been presented with a significant number of growth areas. The validity of each of these was clear, and we could see how these would have benefited our community. However, again, it is our responsibility to prioritise those we feel are essential in partnership with the officers. Therefore, a limited number of development areas were presented to scrutiny. There was a good debate at Scrutiny Committee, and following this, an updated growth list was provided to us, which now additionally provides further information on these proposals alongside an evaluation of the farmers' health checks. An overall increase of 2.99% in council tax is proposed, with the split between the funds set out in the report. General expenses will require a draw from Corporate Priorities Reserve of 69,000 and 26,000 for special expenses. That might have adjusted now we've had those final settlement figures. This is a limited draw, and due to the continued additional funding for this year of the business rate pool, our reserves have significantly risen over the duration of this administration. We've had no vanity projects, just robust decision making based on cost benefit work for each project. The healthy reserves we now have, which are currently reached over 3.2 million, will be required for the next future years where the funding cut will truly impact. This year's position allows us to take stock. A 3-year settlement does provide more certainty over the future funding levels, and this does reinforce the challenging financial position of the council, with sensitivity analysis demonstrating a closer spread of variables. The report clearly sets out the increasing levels of deficit on general expenses and the unaffordability of a food waste service at this time. As mentioned, we've managed to boost reserves significantly in recent years, but despite this, they actually remain insufficient to fund the ever-increasing forecast deficit alongside the food waste collection service. There is still uncertainty regarding the timing of a move to a unitary council, and the costs of transition will also need to be met. A recommendation is made for a delegation of up to 250,000 for 26-27 for the council to support transition, although it's recognised that this initial cost that is likely to have to be met and more funding will need to be found for this. We encourage the leader and the chief executive to seek a suitable split of costs across the boroughs when the government indicate their final decision on the structure moving forward. The proposed budget in respect of special expenses in Melton Mowbray is more stable, however, and there have been variations in income levels in the past. In recognition of this, and that the working balance has not been reviewed for some considerable time, it's been recommended to us that this be increased to 100,000, as is detailed in the report. The cost attributable to Frisbee Close Churchyard and the impact on local residents was mitigated by spreading the burden over 3 years. However, further works have now been identified and funded as urgent in the current year, and the need for future works remains a key risk. The risks set out in the report highlight the many issues the council is facing that have a financial impact, and these need to be recognised. I'm therefore happy to support the current proposals from 2.1 to 2.16. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
A second and reserve right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak. Charles.
The Conservative Group find it difficult at the present time to support this budget, due to firstly there being no provision included in the estimates for a weekly food waste collection, which should be in place from April 2026. Under this legislation, this service becomes a mandatory requirement from the above date. The council has known the position since March 2023, when the Conservative administration requested that money be set aside for the programme that starts in April 2026. Under the current Labour Independent administration, even back in February, they stated they will be rolling the service out. In what appears to be an act of desperation, the leader wrote to the Secretary of State on the 14th of January, requesting that food waste collections be deferred for this council until after local government reorganisation, so as to benefit from economies of scale. To date, the Conservative group have not heard whether he has replied nor agreed to the delay. It is not whether you like the scheme or not. It is mandatory. Unless, of course, the government do their usual U-turn. Mandatory means something that is required by law. It is obligatory, compulsory, and something that must be done, leaving no choice or option. And now the administration is saying it will introduce a food waste collection in 2028, 2 years' time, which will put the cost onto the new authority. Should the introduction of a food waste collection be required and or local government reorganisation be delayed, the council would face a serious financial challenge and would run out of reserves in 28-29. Secondly, this budget has no provision no provision has been included for a town council for which there is cross-party support. The transitional costs, which have not been fully calculated, could be in the region of 150 to 200,000. As a matter of urgency, service reductions and or savings plans should be reconsidered. At the present time, the use of consultants is being widely used to support various services, which should be re-examined to assist balances going forward. Failing this, Section 114 warnings are likely to be reported, as this administration is struggling to meet the financial pressures they face. Any delay leaves the council open to a challenge by someone seeking a judicial review in the High Court. And would the council's external auditor sign the accounts for that particular year? Finally, 2 questions. Can the portfolio holder, Councillor Cox, provide this council with an absolute guarantee that the Section 151 officer fully and unequivocally supports this budget and that it is legal? If the council does not receive permission from central government to delay the introduction of a food waste collection service, what will be the effect on this budget and how would you propose to make up the shortfall? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Olsen.
Yeah, I haven't got a lot to say actually, Madam Mayor, but obviously I do welcome the addition of a year's extra finance for the farmers' health, and I possibly should declare personal interest here thinking about it, Mr. Chief Executive. I'm a retired farmer and still work very closely with the farming community. So I declare that personal. Is that okay? Yeah, okay. No problems. No. Thank you very much. So I do welcome that. I also recognise in today's Melton Times, the leader makes reference to farming. And I would like to thank him very much following the intervention of Richard Sharp and Helen about the inheritance tax that was proposed by the government up to a 1 million base level, if I remember right, due to Councillor Allnutt and our 2 colleagues. It got abolished. So thank you very much, Councillor Allnutt. And one final question to you, Councillor Cox. Bob did ask this question, and it only really needs yes or no to the answer. And the question, just to remind you, is can you provide this council with an absolute guarantee that the Section 151 officer fully and unequivocally supports this budget and that it is legal? Yes or no, please.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I think Councillor Cox, I know you've presented a number of budgets here, and on one previous one, I did congratulate on a fiscally conservative budget that she set out at the start. What has been, long may that continue, may I say. However, what I will say is one I've been on the record for is for the reserves to increase. And the reserves have increased over the period of time from 2023. If those reserves had not increased, this council would be in a real desperate situation. That all said, I wrote to the Section 151 officer, and for those watching, that is the finance director, because that's very technical speak, 151, public might not know what that means. And I asked about the funding for this way services. Now, you can all have a look on the Local Government Association pages and the support, the information that's there for councillors and guidance. You can all listen to what the government announces, what it has done, and great big figures of hundreds of millions of pounds towards councils. However, as Dawn, as the Section 151 officer, wrote to me, she says, however, Melton, we are led to believe that funding has been included in the total and finance settlement, but there's no transparency over this. Now, that won't just be to this council, that will be to all councils in England on there. And as been reported, we are in the category of the funding review resulting in a significant reduction for the funding for this council. Now, I think all councillors, not just in Melton or Leicestershire, but up and down England as well, should be absolutely banging on the door of Whitehall, because if we're to make localism work, then we need to set our own and be free with our own finances, not have Whitehall come in and take basically the reserves that we've worked all hard on to build up. And because if government is going to take that money out and then force initiatives because they've signed international agreements on waste, and while they can be very good in climate change, the local people will pay for it either by having the weekly food collection, which I'm not necessarily sure if the public is absolutely all fully behind it yet because they don't understand, or equally when they're paying for this, the local people, and then their local services that they do value is curtailed or shut off. Now, Madam Mayor, you've made huge inroads to people like SEN and all the other stuff and all the other support this council and other councils put into that. But if we do not get the finances right, or Whitehall takes it away from local government, other services are going to collapse. So really, this needs to be a coalition of all councillors to make sure that Whitehall is giving the funding to local government so it can actually do its job. And if we are going to do a mandated government initiative, it needs proper funding. Not this that a minister goes on Laura Koonsberg and just says, oh, well, I've given £300 million, and really then the Section 151 officer of this authority says, I can't see it in a transparent way where that's come from. But I will be supporting the budget. I would like to also put on note and record my thanks to the Cabinet for including the funding for the farmers' health checks. I know how important that is for my area as well. And just on one thing about the town council, if that's going to take £200,000 out of the budget, the rural people are also going to pay towards that. So for my ward of Somerby, who have their own priorities, what funding is going to come to Somerby ward if they're expected to pay for something that they will have no democratic involvement in? So that's why we just need to be a bit careful of how we just magic £200,000 out of a budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, thank you. I'd echo Councillor Higgins' comments there about funding for local government. It was only in September I was with a group of Labour MPs in Westminster doing the right thing and arguing that certainly through local government reorganisation, I think they're pulling the pin, which is interesting, to local district councils. Tonight we have in front of us a budget that currently does not have provision for the operating of a food waste collection service. However, as a group, we do recognise, putting that to one side, this budget does balance. So basically, if the food wasn't an issue, there wouldn't be an issue here for this group tonight. In the lead up to this meeting over the past 2 months, we've spoken to officers and suggested that a plan be put in place for contingency purposes around service and staff reductions should the need, and should I emphasise, should the need be to implement a service that is mandated on Melton Borough Council, and the government do not give that leeway to delay. Officers informed us that this was not something they had looked at or that the administration was considering, which is the administration's prerogative, of course. Surely any reasonable authority would plan for such a scenario, as to date the government has hung the council out to dry by not providing enough additional financial support. A Labour government has clearly let down a Labour-led administration. Without the guarantee of either more financial monies or written assurance that Melton Borough Council does not need to implement a food waste service, that leaves the council exposed to potential judicial review of reputational damage. We have lorries ordered and trying to delay them, etc. But if they arrived and we aren't having a food waste service, is there any alternative use for those lorries, or are they just going to sit there and rust? As a group, we're fully supportive of the establishment of a town council and feel the funds needed to progress that matter should all be set out in this budget, due to the fact that this government is pursuing local government reorganisation, and this town, the size of Melton Mowbray, needs to be prepared for a democratic voice going forward. Additionally, this budget sets out what is a bleak financial picture and leading to a situation in 2028 where a new unitary is going to have to come in and clear up, which is a poor financial situation, not only in Melton, but many councils of this size and nature up and down the country, and will most likely, any new council will most likely need to rectify services that will be threadbare thin by 2028. Let's hope much needed services that our residents depend on from day to day do not fall off a cliff edge before then. We knew in 2023 the challenges ahead, and these should have been more robustly addressed, but haven't been. The council has been living on hope that the government will come good, and unfortunately this Labour government have not come good. As also set out by Councillor Child, we're unable to support the revenue budget for the reasons set out by Councillor Child, myself, Councillor Ocean, and I'm sure some of my group may speak. So that's our position on this tonight.
Councillor Holmes and then Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The leader of my group hasn't got a clue what I'm going to say, but everything I say, I haven't got a lot of brains, but I got a bit of common sense. Now then, this is Councillor Cox obviously gave this, but the leader did say there were 65 councils that were not happy with this. Was it 65 councils? I think you said in your speech about the waste collections, and there were 65. I don't like the word mandatory. It sounds a bit like Mandelson, but I find that we have to go along apparently with it. But do we? If there are 65 councils that are against it, then there are a lot of councils. I represent a very rural ward, the most rural ward. I have talked to people about this. How do you think that people who do not want it, do not need the waste collection, they don't need it because they compost, they do all these things, and then they're going to have to pay for it? Well, I can see that there could be war in my ward, and I have talked to lots of people. Let us stand up for once and say no. This is too much money for us to actually give out when we're probably not going to use these lorries. And yes, I do think there should be a town council. I have relatives that were on a town council here and it worked very well, but not to the actual I think probably a town council is fine as long as it doesn't take from the rural areas the cost of it, because we have to realise how difficult life is for rural areas. Thank you.
Councillor Mike Brown. Councillor Pidgeot first.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to speak on something separate to food waste and just repeat what I said at the scrutiny meeting, which is an observation. The budget, the narrative with it, tells the picture of where we are with quite a lot of work in progress. And soon we're going to be given an end date, 2028, 2029. We've got a planning service in disarray. The asset development programme is still in progress. The stockyard development, the issue of a town council, and generally the wording that's been used in other government departments for mergers fit for purpose. And it's about managing these issues towards that end date, so it ends in a smooth transition, as smooth a transition as possible. Thank you.
Mike Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to comment on the points made by Councillor Childs, but I find myself fired up now by the revolutionary Conservative tendency represented by Councillor Holmes. But it leads into the same comment. I mean, the reality is, and I don't want to sound like Corporal Jones out of Dad's Army, this is not a point at which we have to panic around our finances. You've had a clear explanation of where we stand as a council, a clear explanation of the position that the Cabinet are pursuing regarding food waste collection. I believe that's the sensible approach to take. And frankly, to actually start talking in terms of contingencies to cut services in order to pay for a service that people largely don't want is going to actually get us into an awful lot of trouble with the people we represent. At this point in time, appropriate steps are being taken to engage with government, not just by us, but by the other 66 councils that are in the same position. And I think that's entirely the right approach to take. I'd also comment, and Councillor Brown's left the room, but he pointed out, that we've been let down. A Labour administration. It's very nice if you call us a Labour administration. We're an independent Labour administration. I'd just clarify. Have been let down by a Labour government in much the same way as Conservative councils in the past have complained about being let down by Conservative governments. The reality is local government funding is still a little bit of a mess and a little bit of a lottery. And I've dealt with many councils over the years, and the disparity between what councils get, even neighbouring councils, still defies belief. And of course, down the road at Harborough, not only have they got substantially more reserves from us, but they're making the 5% cut in council tax this year because they're dipping into the reserves, I think for political reasons. And that's a Lib Dem council. So I think what's being put before us tonight is the right position to adopt. It's the right way to go forward, calmly, to maintain our services, but to plan prudently for what we need to do should the imposition of food waste have to go ahead. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Allnut and Councillor Frere.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, there's a certain amount of shroud waving, and where waste is concerned, talking a bit of rubbish, I think. But just want to deal with the mandatory issue because it's very important. Mandatory services have to be provided. For example, libraries, and they have to be provided to a certain standard. Now, our library in Melton is substandard, and I noticed that in 2023, and I raised it with the Conservative County Council at the time, alongside Councillor Margaret Glancy, and they looked at me as though I'd gone potty. They said there's nothing wrong. You know, we've got no plans at all. Now, some services are not mandatory. We don't have to run a swimming pool. At one time, I don't know if Councillor Orson can remember, but gritting the roads was not mandatory, but we do things. Well, there's lots of things we do that are not mandatory, but the British Constitution and the way Parliament works is that some of these so-called mandatory services have to be provided, but not necessarily in the order or at the scale that is initially expected. So discussing with government has gone on over decades about how particular services can be or cannot be implemented. Now, I just want to refer to one important report that I saw last October from and I'm going to pick it up because otherwise I can't see it. This is the Institute of Government, and it said that cuts to local authority revenue and expenditure from 2010 to 2019 were so severe that they left gaps that could not be filled even by 5 years of above inflation increases, leaving local authorities increasingly reliant on emergency funding and capable of providing only legally mandated services. That's what the report said. And a parallel report said that cuts were so deep that even with sustained increases throughout the 2020s, funding is still due to be lower in real terms in 2028 and 29 than it was almost 2 decades earlier. Now, this is a systemic failure, as my colleague Councillor Brown mentioned, in how we run our country. It's a systemic failure, and it's arisen because some people don't want to pay taxes and it's not funded properly. And yet we know if we are to protect, whether it's oil rigs or wind farms out at the North Sea, we need a Royal Navy that can do so, and we need drones that can do so. If we want to keep our streets safe, we need prisons that have not been let to run down. Wherever you look, this country has been run down by not just 20 years of Conservative administration here, letting the wonderful building in King Street go to rack and ruin, letting us have allotments with land on top of a road, would you believe, uncollected utility bills from tenants, asset management plan that didn't exist, contracts that were suspect, and I could go on and on and on. And this is why we've got difficulties, because we're catching up with this mess. But as Councillor Lee Higgins has mentioned, we have at least managed to sustain our reserves. And if we'd followed your amendments, and I noticed we've got no amendments tonight, no alternative proposals tonight, and frankly, looking at the scrutiny committee comments and the absent Councillor Chubb tonight, I'm not surprised at all, because you can't come up with an alternative. You can find holes in printing and in 1 or 2 problems, but you can't come up with substantial alternatives. So if you do that, I'll be more pleased. Now, Councillor Higgins mentioned that we've done well to sustain our reserves. Oh, he's looking at his watch now, I'm sorry. So I'll wind up if that's all right. But I'm happy to support this budget, because what we're doing is dealing with a mess that was left us. And I'm very pleased with the way that my colleague, Councillor Cox, has been performing, because she is right across the numbers. And what we're doing will protect this council in the long run and the people of this borough.
Thank you. Councillor Prayer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could just make a comment and just keep to the topic that we're talking about, rather than the backwards and forward sticks. We as a council had a climate change strategy that we accepted in 2024. So whether we like it or not, in terms of going net zero by 2030 was the first target, be reducing by, I think it's 68% in terms of our carbon. I teach this to the students, and whether we like it or not, we need to work towards our global environment, our planet, and sustaining resources. And one of those things that the governments have come up with is to recycle food waste to further that target. So I'm not here to debate anything else, but a lot has been said tonight already about food waste, and we need to bring it back to the matter in hand, that as a council we signed up to a climate change pledge. As a country we've signed up to pledges, and whether we throw personal digs across the floor at the way each administration's dealing with what and another, the picture is that as a full council together, that's what we've signed up for, and that's what as us as councillors are saying, that we are concerned about that pledge that we've signed up for, and that we're not prepared as a council. We've been talking about this since about 2022, and that's where I want to put the focus. I acknowledge the fact that our councillor Sarah Cox has done a lot of work. The budget, as we've already spoken, balanced. Nobody's criticising that at all. That's just a comment to say that as for me personally, I teach it on a daily basis. I'm trying to educate 15-year-olds to say that we need to do something to support the planet. I'm not into conspiracy theories. I'm just into facts. And as a business studies teacher, that's what I'm here for. And I'm trying to bring the debate back to the actual agenda item, rather than all this conjecture, because I don't think it's fair that we are allowed not to say and ask questions and debate, as my councillors said to me in my ear before, but then across the floor they're allowed to sling things and say one-off comments. But this, what I'm talking about, is a fact. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, this real debate is about the food waste situation, and I'm not going to take a personal view on that, but I agree entirely with the previous speaker. We have a commitment to sustainability and moving forward. I don't want to roll back on that. Just for an example, I've got my phone here. Let's read the facts, and these are the facts. From 31st of March 2026, all local authorities in England are required to provide weekly separate food waste collections in household under the simple recycling legislation. That's the legislation that's in. It's in now. 2028 isn't now. I then scroll down and I get to exceptions. And this is, I didn't put this in, this is what Google's put in. Some local authorities, such as Melton Borough Council, that's come up, may face delays to 2028 due to funding shortages, despite the national mandate. That's what says on my phone. I would say that's awful. We have been picked out by Google as being an exception 2 years after the legislation's come in. We know, and everybody knows here, by 2028, whether we like it or not, if the government goes ahead, this will not exist. You are just pushing down the road, this work, to another authority, whether it's the shadow one which comes in next year or the one after, and I find that, I'm sorry, wrong on all ways. You either admit you haven't got the funds to do it and say it to the public, or do like a lot of the councils are doing, implement it now. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Cliff.
With your permission, I'm going to remain seated for my reflections. I was actually working in local government when the austerity years hit, and we thought it was pretty bad then, and it's not got any better. In fact, it's got successively worse year on year under successive governments. So I don't think this is a particularly partisan issue. I felt for a long time that local government finances are basically a sort of a wing and a prayer. You know, for many years, every budget we've looked at has said, you know, well, we're projecting millions of pounds of deficit, but it's subject to things that the government will tell us right at the last minute. And that's nothing new. Local government finances are quite a depressing place to be. Ideologically speaking, I'm in favour of local government reform and food waste collection, but it's just unfortunate that a lot of factors are kind of coalescing at the same time. I want to, at this point, recommend a really great book called, a rather depressing title, but I'd love my colleagues to read it. It's called Failed State, Why Nothing Works and How to Fix It. Reflections on where we are as a government, you know, as a country, and local government issues, written by someone who's an ex-civil servant who was in operational under the previous Conservative governments. Really insightful, and lays out how local government reform might begin to try and unpick and resolve some of these local government issues. But I would like to pay credit to my colleagues who've worked on this budget, and I want to pay particular credit to the way in which the reserves have been built up. I think when we came in to the administration, it was horrifying to see the level of reserves. Again, I don't particularly judge the previous administration for that, because again, you know, local government finances has been difficult for many years, and that's one instrument that they had at their disposal at the time. I also want to pay credit to the work that's been done on the asset management front. I think that was a ball that was dropped under the previous administration, and I'm grateful for my colleagues for picking that up. But the fact remains that there are very limited options for us. And again, I agree with everything that Councillor Freer, Councillor Evans has said, but again, we can stamp our feet and raise our fists as much as we want. There are no suggestions coming forward about how we solve this. There are no, you know, hundreds of thousands of pounds hidden away that we can easily access. And so again, I want to pay tribute to the leader in the what's become sector leading actions that he's taken in terms of drawing attention to the predicament we find ourselves in, and the way that other councils have taken solace in that. Actually, again, cross-party councils have taken solace in that. So I will be supporting this, and I just want to pay tribute to all the work that's gone into it. And I remain grateful that actually we've got a lot of talent and a lot of skilled eyes on this now. And again, I want to echo my colleague Councillor Brown in saying, you know, let's not panic, let's work together, let's stay measured about this, and try and keep the personal vitriol out of the decision-making process over the coming years as we head towards local government reform and all the challenges that brings, so that we can work together for the benefit of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clancy.
Yes, thank you. It's been very interesting listening to everyone's point of view on this, but in my view, I think we're between a rock and a hard place on this one. I'd love a U-turn, and as Councillor Child has said, that'd be absolutely brilliant, but in the light, it's probably not going to happen. We're not the only council facing this dilemma. Many councils in our country are. I think there's 67 in total. We mentioned 65 or 67. But thankfully, with prudent management, we've increased our reserves, as we've already mentioned, and to have a balanced budget for 26-27. So I am quite willing to sort of support the recommendations this evening. We have to prepare for local government reorganisation, which is a huge financial burden for a small council, and food waste, both huge financial commitments hitting us at the same time. Something that has to give, and this in this instance, it's food waste collection. It'll be delayed until April 2028. Unfortunately, there's no other alternative we can do. One question I would just like to ask, with all the things that have been sort of bandied about, I've noticed there was no alternative Conservative budget, but I would just like to, as you're so against it, I mean, I'd just like to ask a question. Where do you see we get the magic formula to enable implementation without bankrupting this council? I think it's quite an interesting thing, and we have faced that dilemma ourselves, which is why it's taken quite a while to come to the end result of we delay food implementation until April 2028. It has not been an easy decision and one that we've been considering for quite a while. But thank you. And we've all worked extremely hard on this. Thank you.
Does anybody else wishing to speak before we continue? Before we go to Councillor Cox, can I ask our finance officer to clarify some things, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So clarification was requested as to whether I support the budget in front of you this evening. It is not for me to support or otherwise, but my comments on the robustness of the estimates and the adequacy of the reserves is well covered in section 8, so I would advise you to read that. With regard to the lawfulness of not including financial provision for the introduction of a food waste collection service, you will see in the report that it's very clear that an exemption is being sought from the government for this. And should this not be provided, recommendation 2.9.9 clearly sets out the action that would be taken in preparation for this not being approved. And that's to model a variety of financial scenarios to mitigate the financial implications of this. And this would need to be brought back to Council for approval. Thank you.
As no other person wishes to speak, I hand over to Councillor Cox to give us.
Thank you. There's been much debate on this, so I will be chopping, excuse me if I chop and change to various different bits of data. Before I go into some of that, can I just say, Councillor Frith, thank you for those comments, because I actually ideologically completely agree with you. We are leaving a problem for the next generation, and I passionately believe and wish we could have introduced food waste. I know it might be burdensome, it might be an issue for many people, but we've got to start protecting the future. But coming to that, I'd like to go to the aspersion that we've not looked at this and we had no intention of doing this. That is completely wrong. We have actually had to commit already, I believe it's over 200,000 from our own capital receipts to the purchase of the vehicles, because that element wasn't funded. So if this council had no intention of ever doing it, we would not be committing our own capital receipts to the purchase of the vehicles, which we've done. In terms of not looking at what measures we can take, we've looked at phased introduction. All of these things are being planned out and considered at this stage. We met with BIFA today looking at, could we delay the receipt of the vehicles? So not in terms of saying no, never, just saying could we delay the delivery of them. Those conversations have begun. So there is a commitment by this authority to introduce this at some point. So I'm sorry, Elaine, we're probably going to have a war out on your ward, because it will come. It's just when will it come? If the government give us the money, we'll be doing it as soon as we receive the vehicles. But that isn't going to happen. And we all understand that. We know that, no matter which colour was in at central government. In relation to the town council, I understand that opposition colleagues are supportive of a town council, and many colleagues this side are, but that matter has to go through a constitutional consideration. It's not a foregone conclusion. And so at this stage, we don't know and can't anticipate the full funding requirement for that funding. I have had numerous representations on this as the finance officer of where would that funding come from as well. And I think that's a discussion to be had, because many of the rural communities don't want to see their council tax revenue funding something that's just for the Melton town. So they are things to consider, and I'm sure there'll be discussions about this across the whole council at a later date. In relation to austerity, as you've heard me say, we are financially okay this year and we intend to take stock. I don't want to enter another world of austerity again. We've seen what damage the cuts did. We've seen unstable staff teams, people leaving the public sector because of the instability of the employment. We've already got LGR on the horizon. We want to keep our good officers here and give them the best opportunity to apply for those jobs under LGR, but also to continue delivering the services locally. If we start just cutting left, right and centre, it will destabilise the services locally, and we don't need to be doing that this year. That is not to say behind the scenes, we're also considering what would we need to do if we really had to. So those issues are being considered. In relation to comments by the 151 officer, we've had many conversations over this. We understand the risks of not implementing food waste, and we have put the appeal into government, and they may come back and say you've got to do something. There is consideration for that, and plans have already been worked up. And if we had to change the budget, we'd have to come back to full council, and that would have to happen. We know that. We are in a comfortable position because we do have £3.2 million worth of reserves. That's a phenomenal amount over what we had when we first came in as an administration. The first advice that was given to me was be financially prudent because a rainy day might come, and that was from the 151 officer, and that was good advice. That was good advice, and we did. We've done no vanity projects. That business pool money has just continued to be reserved, and we're here. This is the rainy day. So in relation to special expenses in town council, I just want to raise, we have really limited finance in that special expenses account that typically would be what was used for town council.
30 seconds.
Yep, that's fine. And that's all I wanted to say. So unless there's other bits I haven't covered, in which case I'm happy for councillors to present me with those questions and I can get back to you outside of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now proceed to the vote. Please use the electronic voting system in front of you and choose either for, against, or abstain. So it's 16 for, 1 abstention and 9 against. So it's carried. Thank you. Item 11, Cabinet recommendation. I will now invite a portfolio holder for corporate finances, property and resources.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you. Going to leave as well.
Leave.
Instead.
Okay. I think we're going to go.
Madam Mayor, sorry. I just a quick question, because on previous occasions when we've talked about certain elements of the housing revenue, I've been requested to declare a non-pecuniary interest in Gretton Court, as this is part of those figures. Am I required to leave the building, or leave the room rather? Yeah, please can I leave the building? No, sorry.
Moment, please, while we check.
Councillor Brown's had to nip out for make a personal phone call. Could we ask for an adjournment for 5 minutes, please? Didn't say it apparent.
Yes, we can. Toilet break. Right, are we all ready, please? Thank you. Right, just for information, Councillor Anthwaite and Councillor Merlin Gordon has left because pure interest. Okay, we go on.
Sorry, Councillor Carter.
And Councillor Carter. Item 11. I will now invite the portfolio holder of Corporate Finance, Property and Resources, Councillor Cox, to present a Cabinet recommendation to Council on Revenue Budget Proposal 26-27 for the Housing Revenue Account.
Thank you. Only two to go. As previously reported, there's been an overspend for this financial year forecast, which was met by a transfer from reserves to balance the budget and maintain the approved working balance within the HRA. The detail underpinning the overspend is clearly set out in the report and has regularly been reported to Cabinet, and we actually have monthly monitoring in place for that, alongside actions that have continued to be taken to mitigate this. A key area to celebrate is the improvement in rent collection performance over the term of this administration. This reflects the additional investment made in the area and not only benefits the council, but is fairer to all council tenants. Looking forward, government policy provides clear guidance on the level of rent increase in the proposals are in line with this policy, which results in a 4.8% average increase. Rent convergence is due to be implemented from April 2027, and this will allow rents to be increased at a higher rate until formula rent is met. The modelling for this still has to be undertaken and the resulting impact on the business plan. However, this will be additional income into the HRA, which can be used to help ease the financial pressures caused by the regulatory changes. Increasing demand and inflationary increases. The capital programme proposed is in line with the previous approved and well-established asset management plan, and we look forward to the progress around the garage sites, each of which will be determined on a case-by-case basis. Over the life of the business plan, whilst reserves are drawn on in early years, these increase in later years, and across the term of the business plan, the reserves remain above the minimum levels. It is recognised that overspends at the level seen recently are not financially sustainable, and to that end, Cabinet will be closely monitoring the spend against the newly awarded contracts. And I'd just like to thank officers for two issues in relation to this, to Michelle Howard and the team. And that's firstly in terms of rent collection, which has seen a significant improvement, and that's during a time of financial pressure on households. I think that also extends to the support from the community hub that support tenants at an early stage if they're going to get into financial difficulties. And secondly, to the housing team and the procurement team in terms of their contract negotiations, turning around a new maintenance contract in such a short period of time is remarkable, and we're very grateful to the team for their work on that. So I'm happy to propose the recommendations from 2.1 to 2.4. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. I now open this item to debate. Councillor Ronan Brown.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cox. I think this is probably the one good news story that you do have in this council. I know you've got the underspends, but the stuff that you've just highlighted is something that when I was portfolio holder, I was working with Michelle to try and get that done. And it takes a little bit of time, but you've got there, and there is a great officer team that's here. I'm not going to name anybody. I don't think it's appropriate because you leave people out, but we do speak about it, don't we, at the briefings, etc. But there is pressures on the capital. Glad that you're keeping an eye on it. I'm sure you'll keep an eye on it, Councillor Allnut, the expenditure, etc. The sector is in very challenging times. Costs are going up. Inflation for building maintenance is weighing the income that's coming in, and we've got rents that are basically, I know we're allowed to increase them, and we have hopefully another 5-year settlement, but there will be pressure on this council, and there may need to be, and I'm not going to criticise it, and you can put on the record what I said here, there may be needs in time to move some of your capital expenditure and those nice to do projects back into other projects, etc., i.e. your kitchens, your doors, your bathrooms, your fire safety, your health and safety, and all the regulatory compliance that is requested. You know, I've been reassured speaking to the manager of the service, the assistant director, that he's got a handle on the invoicing, got a handle on the contract management now, and these things happen. And when you're dealing with contractors, it's not easy. It may not be easy with the new contractor. You see how it goes, etc. It all comes down to personnel, around strategy, etc. But I think this is one service that we will probably hand over in 2028 to whoever the new authority is, in good shape. And I think all the staff should be congratulated for the work that they've done. Good news story on the rent arrears, when many other local authorities and housing associations are saying the opposite happened, especially with the migration of the universal credit. And yeah, from our side, you know, we'll fully support this budget and happy to work alongside with an input into things as we move forward. So yeah, well done, everyone.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, it's just a point of note, and whether Councillor Cox would like to comment on it in summing up. It is obviously, it was touched on just before, as the local government reorganisation. The tenants, and most members will know this, or all members will know this, the tenants pay into this revenue account, and that is separate from general council tax. So that all said is, in an effect, the tenants have a share ownership of, and not in the legal sense, of the housing stock and how this budget is. So can Councillor Cox assure me or this council that before anything's handed over with LGR, that the tenants are able to get those projects that are important to them to be done before any more remote council comes in and then does something where they're a little bit further away from our council tenants, because we all have council tenants in our own wards, and we know usually who they are and all the other stuff. The next unitary authority, they're going to be far more remote, and there's not that many councils that have a council housing stock. So can you assure me on that? It doesn't have to be necessarily today, but I think we've got to start planning of how we get those projects done, so our tenants are handed over in a good state and that they've had some benefit from it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Evans.
Thank you, and I agree entirely with Councillor Bone on this. This is our best area, and this is where we've performed. From when I joined the council to where we are now is staggeringly good. We certainly were not in a good place. I don't believe in all this administration changes and all the rest of it. I don't want to get into politics, hence I'm an independent. But I think credit where credit due. In this area, and I'm trying not to look at the person, we have an exceptional officer here who has led from the front and done the work that's really made this happen. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Alden.
Madam Mayor, as this is my portfolio as well as being leader, I want to thank everyone for their comments and references to staff. Apropos LGR, that is definitely on my horizon, and we have already had informal talks about how the services progress, and I referred to that in my announcement. So those things are on the agenda to be discussed, and I would imagine that as we roll forward and we start this sort of more cross-party approach to LGR transition, some of the detail will be inked in. I think it would be incorrect, though, to suggest that on vesting day for the new authority, every council house, every property will be in pristine condition. I mean, that's just not realistic. I mean, if the day before someone breaks a window, you're not going to rush around and put the paint in, are you? So, but the thing is, every authority will be in the same boat. So that's different. Of course, Rutland doesn't have a housing stock. And my previous experience with the equivalent of LGR in Wiltshire was that that was exactly the same. Strangely enough, up in the north that was run by the Liberal Democrats, we disposed of all of our housing stock to housing associations, and down in the south in Salisbury, true blue, solid, they had their own direct Labour and they had their own council estate. So it's not a political thing. It's a structural thing, really. But this can be sorted, and I'm convinced of that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to comment on one particular part about the garage sites. There are a couple in a few wards, and one I've got. I think it's 3 on my ward. One of which has already been developed on, and that was a really quite a good project that we managed to put 3 council houses, social housing houses on it, and develop that area. I know for a fact that this work has been. The project reviews and trying to get these sites looked at has gone on for quite a number of years. I can't remember how many years, but I know at least 6, 8 years, where the officers, various officers, some obviously are left now, have tried to develop these sites and tried to come up with valid alternatives to what they're not being used for. Some of the sites are going into disrepair. They're used for not very nice things sometimes. Some of the garages are actually used by the residents still, but they are in a poor state. So absolutely welcome the work that's continuing to be done on those sites to help develop them. I know there were certain issues with certain sites where they had rights of way access, so there were legal issues around why we couldn't have developed them in the past. So I hope that it works out well going forward, and that we can put something meaningful on those areas so that we can be proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? I pass on to Councillor Cox.
Only a very brief one. Only a very brief response from me in relation to the garage sites. Just to reassure Councillor Freer that each garage site is going to be considered on a case-by-case basis, and that the ward councillors will be involved in that. That's not just going to be done by cabinet or in isolation by us. You will all be involved in the options that are considered for each site. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now proceed to the vote. Please use the electronic voting system in front of you and choose either for, against, or abstain. So that's unanimous 23. Thank you. Right, last item, number 12. I will now invite the portfolio holder for corporate finances, property and resources, Councillor Cox, to present a cabinet recommendation to the council on the Treasury Management Strategy 26-27.
Thank you. Last one. This is an area, the Treasury Management is an area where our finance officers have always done well in supporting the financial challenges that we face. Whilst quite a technical paper, the various indicators and supporting narrative continue to demonstrate just how well the team have been managing council finances in a prudent and measured way. They show how cash flow is managed throughout the year to good effect, and how well we manage our investments, which make a significant contribution to reducing the net costs of services across all council funds. The bad news for us as a council is that interest rates have reduced this year, and that there are further reductions forecast, which is brilliant news for mortgage holders in the coming year, and therefore the team will continue to lock in as much of our investments whilst rates are high as possible for the benefit of us, to benefit from those higher rates. The value of our property fund continues to stabilise. I have discussed the property fund at length with the team, and I am satisfied that the income generated by this fund offsets the potential loss we would make if we had to realise this fund at this moment in time. Through bringing leasing into the balance sheet and the future plan borrowing for the stockyard, the operational boundary has been increased to allow the necessary headroom should there be a need for any short-term borrowing for cash flow purposes. I'd just like to thank the team as well for putting the colour coordination in, that hopefully will benefit everyone understanding what things meant within the paper, because it is quite a technical financial paper, and those colours just allow us to see the length of term for investments that take place, and therefore I'm happy to support the recommendations from 2.1 to 2.3. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder? Thank you. I will now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand if they wish to speak. Can I confirm that no members wishes to speak? Councillor Arnott?
I just want to emphasise that the department that produces this excellent result is just as good as the housing department. Okay, I don't want anybody, I don't want anybody falling out. Excellent report, excellent result under this administration.
Now that you got out of your chest, can I confirm no other member wishes to speak? In that case, we go to the electronic voting system in front of you. Choose either for, against, or abstain. That is 25 for and 1 abstention. Thank you. And with
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Just for Councillor Evans and benefit, I've got a food waste collection bin here and a smaller one for Councillor Elaine Holmes. All right. So if you want to get started, you start this immediately. All right.
With no other business, I declare the meeting closed at 9:08.
Members, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the Mayor of the Borough of Melton, Councillor Siggy Atherton.